Okay. So let's see. Today is going to be the continuation of yesterday. So it's still on 6.3. It's solving by elimination, but we're basically progressively getting more difficult. Now, does anybody want me to do any of the questions from like homework or anything from yesterday? Like something you might have had trouble with? Was that 6.2? I think that was on. I mean that shouldn't matter, but so sure, I absolutely can do that. Number 20. Okay, number 25 from homework. I don't know if you have it in front of you, Jeremy. I don't. Okay. Oh. I believe there was 20 coins. Okay, and then was it $1.140? Okay, I was thinking $1.10. Okay, so here's the equations you should have used to solve that one. And absolutely, the reason this one was assigned was because it definitely wasn't clear what the equations were. You had to try to figure them out a little bit. So the first sentence, when it tells you that there's 20 coins, the reason it's saying that sentence is because the number of nickels and the number of dimes would be 20. So that's one equation. The second equation, it's easier to understand, but probably harder to come up with. So it tells you that the nickels and dimes together is $1.40. And when I say it's harder to come up with, that's because most of you just like, you automatically know that nickels are 5 cents and dimes are 10 cents. So like when you're doing things in your head, you already know to do 5 cents per nickel, 10 cents per dime. And so like you just add them up in your head. But this would be the equation that you write down. Now, I'm actually going to write a different equation so it'd be easier. So instead of, hey, you know what? Let's start a record streak of how many days in a row I can forget to share my screen. Thank you for letting me know. There, that's better. That's basically what I was pointing at the whole time that you couldn't see. So the number of nickels and the number of dimes is 20. Instead of using $0.05 per nickel, I'm going to do cents. So 5 cents per nickel, 10 cents per dime, and then you have 140 cents. So rather than dealing with dollars, let's put it in terms of cents, because then the numbers work out nicer. Now this one was not supposed to be solved with elimination, partially because you wouldn't know how to do it yet. This was supposed to be solved with substitution, because it was part of 6.2's homework. And you have to solve for a variable. So I'm going to solve for n, and I'm going to subtract d from both sides. So n is going to be 20 minus d. And I'm going to put this equation in place of n in the other problem. So then this would say 5 times 20 minus d, because nickels is 20 minus dimes, plus 10 times per dime is 140. Now, all of this information is about dimes, so when we're done, it should tell us how many dimes we have. So 100 minus 5 dimes. Let's see, You know what? My handwriting is not good enough that that D looks like, it looks like a 0. But negative 5D plus 10D can go together. And together they would make positive 5D. And then I could subtract 100. Divide by 5. I'm running out of space here, so crap. Not 80 dimes, 8 dimes. So I end up getting 8 dimes, and then the number of nickels is 20 minus the number of dimes. So 20 minus 8 dimes would be 12 nickels. And so those would be the two answers you get from this. But yes, I'm glad you asked this question. I forgot to bring it up. This was by far the hardest one in the homework, in my opinion, because the equations weren't like easy to decipher. So did that kind of help what you were looking for, Jeremy? Okay, perfect. I can. Are you trying to write it down? Screenshot. You got to learn these tricks. Screenshot. You hit the... Shoot, I don't have a Chromebook in front of me. I know that you have a button on the top row that looks like rectangles. That's Windows. I believe if you hit Function and then the Windows button, that's a screenshot. Is that correct? Oh, Control. Thank you. Yeah, I know. I don't have a. Oh yeah, Control. I was looking at the Mac. The Mac has Function in the lower left. Yeah, PC's Controls in the lower left. Okay, Jackson, I'm going to move on just to save time. Don't forget that I'm recording this, so you could always look at the video too. Let me really quickly put up a problem we did yesterday just to remind you of what elimination was. So this was an example we wrote down, so you guys don't need to write it down because we already have. This was the second one we did yesterday. Now elimination, you need two things to happen. You need all terms lined up, and on this one that works because the y's are lined up, the x's are lined up, the equal signs are lined up, and the regular numbers are lined up. And then the second thing that has to happen to use elimination is you need one variable. It doesn't matter which variable. One variable must have two opposite numbers. So like for this problem, 3 and negative 3. Now if you have this situation, elimination works. Now, so if you guys are writing notes, this would be an absolute great thing for you to circle, highlight, whatever. This is for elimination. Elimination, you're going to add both lines together. So y plus 2y would be 3y. 3 plus negative 3 is 0. Negative 2 plus 14 is 12. And you know, I wrote a line through this because they cancel. Technically, they add up to be 0. So nobody usually writes plus 0. So that's the reason I didn't write it. But canceling means that they turned into 0. And then we have 3y equals 12, and then we can find y really quickly. Divide by 3. And then you pick either equation to figure out x. but I put my y answer in there. So this is what we did yesterday. So minus 4 divide by 3. Okay. So the big idea that I'm trying to get across, and the reason I put this back up here, we're going to add both lines together. And both of these criteria are important. If those two things happen, we can solve it. Okay? So that gets us to today. Today is example 2. Thanks. Example 2 was subtraction, and I deleted that whole folder because I think that is terrible for students to learn. Caleb, I'm glad to see my kids aren't the only ones. Oh, Enrique, this streak is only 2, but this week I think I'm 3 for 4 on days forgetting to share my screen. Oh yeah, example 3. Okay. Well, this has one criteria, correct? So one criteria is that terms are lined up. Good. Now, you don't have to write this. Like what I'm writing in orange, this is kind of just what you think in your head. It's not something you have to write. I'm just doing it for our notes. So terms are lined up. We're good. X's, Y's, equals numbers. Good. Second criteria, we need two numbers opposite. Either X or Y. Well, we're close, but we don't have that. If I look at the X's, I've got a 2 and a 2. If I look at the Y's, I've got a 1 and a negative 6. So Y's aren't even close. X's are close. But the reason they have to be opposite, if I add these two lines together, well, nothing cancels. This would just give me a new equation. Like, that doesn't help me at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the equations around so that it does work. Now, one thing we're allowed to do is we're allowed to multiply a whole equation by a certain number. Like, you're allowed to do that, it still works. So like, I could multiply the whole top line by 2. And then this would become a 4, a 2, and a 6. And that wouldn't help this problem at all, but I could do it. What I am going to do is I'm purposely going to multiply one of the equations, or both, but I'm going to purposely multiply by something that helps us. So I'm going to multiply the whole line by -1. And I'm going to rewrite both equations. The bottom equation is now -2x plus 6y equals -24. And it's like a valid way to solve these if you multiply a whole line by a number. And now that I did that, well, now I have two numbers that are opposite. So now it meets both criteria. So this is kind of the method we're going to pick if you have two equations that the numbers don't work. is you can multiply by numbers to make them work. So now if I add both lines together, I get x's canceling. 1y plus 6y is 7y. 3 and negative 24 makes negative 21. Divide both sides by 7. And I get negative 3. And then I want to find the second answer. I can pick any one of these four equations. It will work no matter which equation I pick. Just pick the easiest one for you. I'm probably going to pick the top one because its numbers are smallest. So 2x plus y is 3. I figured out y is negative 3. So if I add 3 to both sides, that would cancel out to negative 3. And then divide by 2. I get both answers. Okay, now feel free. I mean, like nobody asked a question. It looks like nobody typed anything in. How does that go? Is there questions on something I did that maybe confused you? Like anything that's up there. It doesn't matter. So if I had decided to multiply the top one instead, what would have happened is this would have said negative 7. Let me change colors. This would have turned out to be negative 7y and positive 21, and my answer still would have been negative 3. So it actually doesn't matter which one you multiply by, just your choice. Okay, then let's put one up that we're going to kind of do together. I'll kind of call on you guys to help me out if you can. Let's put 2x plus y equals 3. I got to learn how to write my y's smaller. All right. Who haven't I called on? David. Okay, I know your mic doesn't work. But David, do you think you could type in the first criteria we're looking for is we check to see if the terms are lined up. Are all of these terms lined up correctly? That's the first thing we're checking. Are the x's together? Are the y's together? Are the equal signs together? Are the numbers together? Because that's the first thing we always have to check for on elimination. Oh, what the heck? Google keeps changing their settings. Yes, they are, David. Perfect. So when I say lined up, I basically just want to check that they're above each other. That's pretty much it. So lined up, good. Check. Okay. Asher, the next thing I need to do is I need to check if I have two numbers that are opposite. Do I have that? You there, Asher? Who's the one that asked about the cameras, by the way? Was that Hallie? Or Hattie, sorry. I know this is partially why some people require cameras on. They just want to know you're there and participating. But to me, some of you guys have great internet, Some of you have horrible internet. It's not your fault either way, right? And some of you have really bad Chromebooks, like Austin. So I don't force you to use all the technology just because it comes out so much worse sometimes. And so my main goal is I want you guys to be able to learn without interruptions, like laggy internet or things like that. And so having your camera off and things like that actually helps your Google Meet run better. Okay. So Asher, you can type in the chat if your mic isn't working. So that goes for everybody, not just trying to pick on Asher. If your mic isn't working or whatever, I totally get it. That's fine. But if you guys if you could type in an answer in the chat, that would be awesome. Just that way, it helps me. It helps me know how well you're doing on things. So, like as a teacher, my job is to try to help you learn, and so it's kind of what lets me know where you're at. Okay, so Asher, your question, if you can, do I have two opposite numbers? Okay, we'll go to somebody else here rather than Abdishakar. Are you there? Is your mic working? Awesome. Do I have two opposite numbers? Okay, perfect. Perfect. So here's what I was thinking some people might have answered on accident. Is some people might have looked and saw that y was 1 and x was -1. And so it's easy to make that mistake. But you guys specifically have to focus on like one variable at a time. So do you want to keep going, Abdishakar? Nice. Oh, that was perfect. I didn't even have to lead you on that one. Yeah, so we have two choices. You guys basically pick which variable you want to cancel. Now, you said that one perfect. I could multiply the bottom line by 2. And then the x's will be opposite. So that's great. Nice job. If you wanted to cancel the y's, we could have multiplied the top line by -3. And then the y's would have been canceled. So you can pick what you're canceling. All right, nice job. So let me rewrite my two equations. So -2x plus 6y and -24. Okay, now I do have two opposite numbers now. So both criteria are met. And trying to think who I haven't called on. Ava? Ava, I know you were having tech issues yesterday. How's your thing working today? Must be good again, huh? I'm just trying to make it around to everybody. Devin, I don't know if I've called on you yet. Hello, perfect. What do I get when I add together both lines? Nice. Perfect. Hey, this is the same problem we had up above, isn't it? Yeah, weird. Okay. Sorry, keep going. I didn't mean to cut you off. Perfect. Perfect. I was just thinking that was weird. It was the same as the one we did up there. Okay, so we have the first answer. Grace? Grace, do you think you could help me figure out how to find the second answer? Okay. Uh, part part of the reason I was talking about the video, like not having the video on, I just don't feel like I want to make people do that. But I also need to know people are there participating. You're there. You're there. Perfect. I wasn't trying to make you rush to the computer. That's all right. I wasn't trying to call you out in particular. I was just bringing it up again. How do I find the second one? Do you want me to help you a little bit? Okay. So to find the second answer, we can pick any one of these four. Which one do you think looks the easiest? Yep. Yeah, that's what I would have picked too. Okay, so I'll rewrite the top one. And then what do I do with the top one again? Nice job. Nice job. This is exactly the same as the other one we did. What the heck? Yeah. Well, whatever. It's like deja vu. Okay, nice job, Grace. Add 3 to both sides. Cancels. 6. Basically, this is just a copy-paste of the one directly above it now. But we have both answers. So this one was just considered a step harder than the one we just did. Only because you're multiplying by a regular number rather than a negative sign. And honestly, it's no different. But these are usually considered a notch harder. So let's move to the one that's, I don't know, a little bit harder than that, but not really. Although we might need a calculator person on this one. Basically, numbers above 5, you know, that's calculator territory. Okay. Patrick, are you there? Awesome. Okay, here's what I was hoping you could help me with to start. The first thing I need to check for, do I have all the terms lined up? Nice. Okay, that's all I was looking for, Patrick. Nice job. That's a good start. Okay, good. So the reason I'm bringing this up repeatedly is tomorrow, that's what's going to change. Tomorrow they're not going to be lined up. So we'll have to focus on that. But that's not for today. Today is us focusing on the fact that the numbers aren't opposite. So this one does not have 2 numbers that are opposite. You know, that's basically what we've been dealing with. Decia, you have a really easy question. I feel like I've called on you a bunch this week, so I'll give you a super easy question. Which variable do we want to cancel? And this is just your personal preference. It doesn't matter which one you pick. So the y's. Okay, perfect. So here's the plan of attack is we have no numbers that are opposite. So you need to specifically pick which variable you want to focus on. So Decia said y. Apparently she's got a vendetta against y. So we have a -12 and we have a -8. We want to multiply them by something to make them the same. So this is usually called the least common multiple. Most of you will think of it as like a common denominator. So if I had 12 and 8 on the bottoms of fractions, what would I turn them both into? So that's kind of what I'm looking at. And I'm sure some of you can do this in your head, and some of you probably figured out it's 24. But here is the... Yes, go ahead. Yes, that's what we're going to do. Yep. So first thing I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out what number both 12 and 8 can turn into. And I don't know what we should call this, the low-tech way? The lowest tech way to figure this out is to add 12, the bigger number. Take the bigger number and write down a couple multiples. And then from there, you figure out which one 8 can go into first. And I know 8 can go into 24. So I am going to take that information and figure out what to multiply the lines by. So I'm going to change the 12 into a 24 by multiplying by 2. I'm going to change the 8 into a 24 by multiplying by 3. Now here's the added little twist. They would both be negative. I need one to be positive. So I pick which one I want a negative sign on. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to make one of them so that one's negative, one's positive. And you can multiply both lines to make sure that they have a number in common. So 2 times 7, 2 times -12, 2 times -22, 3 times 5, but negative, plus 24, 3 times 14, 30, 12, 42. 42, but positive. Okay, there's my two new equations. And I'm going to add them up, because that's what we would do with elimination. 14 minus 15 is -1. -24 plus 24 is 0. Go ahead. Which one? This one? No. You forgot to make one of the equations negative. So I got x is 2. And then this part is obviously the same as every other time, is you pick one of these equations you think is the easiest. In this case, I don't think any of them are easy. It's probably the easiest because the numbers are the smallest. Go ahead. Say it again. Part of it cut out. Do you mean could you cancel the x's? Or Okay, so here's what I think you're asking me. So we made the decision from the start to cancel the y's, and that's why we both made them opposite numbers. But we definitely could have made the decision to cancel x's, and then I would have multiplied the top line by 5 and the bottom line by -7. And these would have been 35s. So the x's would have canceled, and we would have got an answer for y. And that would have worked. If that's what you're asking. Oh. Oh. Oh, if that was the case, yes. Yeah, if that's what you're asking, you can pick any one of these 4 equations. I just picked that one at random because the numbers were smallest and I could do it in my head. It is a very shameful moment for me to admit I don't have a working calculator at my desk. Your math teacher does not have a working calculator. I need to buy batteries. But I would put the x in this one, but I absolutely could have picked the other 3. And my guess is you guys are pretty good at solving these by now, which is why I'm kind of semi-skipping some of these steps now. So when I'm done, I end up with the answer of 2 and 3. The weird part about these questions is they can be done a bunch of ways. Like, I didn't have to multiply by 2 and -3. I could have multiplied the top line by 8, and I could have multiplied the bottom line by 12. And the numbers would have been huge, but it still would have worked. I could have also chosen to cancel the x's first, and then I would have ended with y equals 3 as my first answer, and x equals 2 as the second answer. So you can do these questions a lot of ways, as long as whatever you do is correct. And then the final answer should be the same every time. And so that's the part that I know is difficult for me to get across. Because like when a lot of you guys try your homework questions, you want to look up a correct way to do it, and it might be different than yours, but you have the same answer. Okay, either way, does somebody have a question on something that's up here before I wanted to give you guys a couple to try on your own. Unless you'd rather me not do that today just because we've used up a lot of time. But otherwise, certainly ask away. Okay. Do you guys have a preference if you want me to put up a couple questions for you to try? Or how about this? I'll put up a couple questions to try. And if you want to stay on and try them, you certainly can. And I'll just go over those quick. If you feel like you understand this topic well enough already, you can certainly, leave the meeting and we'll just kind of take advantage of the distance learning style where it's kind of, it's in flux. So let me put up 2 questions, and if you guys want to try them, you can. We'll go with red. I remember this was somebody's favorite color. Okay. So there's 2 of them. Why don't you guys take a couple minutes to try these, and then I'll start putting the answers up in a couple minutes. Apparently it must be close to lunchtime because I hear my cat in the background through my headphones. Oh my God, you guys are trying to turn the chat into Twitch. What are you doing? You're not watching a gamer right now. Let me start putting up the worked out solutions here because I'm going to guess a lot of you are probably done with the first one. Okay, you guys got to quit putting info about your gaming stuff over there. I keep thinking people are asking me questions because that's what the chat is for. Okay, I just fit this on the screen. So the second one definitely involved more work. And that's because you had to multiply both equations by something. So I'm also going to guess that virtually everybody chooses to cancel the x. And it's almost kind of universal. It's almost kind of universal that everybody cancels the x's because it's just first. It's like the first thing you see. So most people do. And so I made sure to do that because I have a feeling a lot of you guys did that as well. So the question on the left, I only had to multiply the second line. And then that became a 3 and a negative 3. Now, it's also entirely possible that I made a mistake with numbers in there somewhere too. You guys probably are finding that it's really easy to accidentally forget to multiply one of the terms. So it's not saying I didn't. So if I made a mistake, let me know. And then right here, when you get 5y equals 0, I know a lot of people stop here because they feel like they did something wrong, but that's actually okay. Zero is an okay answer, because when you divide both sides by 5, you still get 0. So 0 is an okay answer. I mean, it is a number, so it's fine. And then once you get 0, it's easy to find the second one because, 0 is easy to work with. The second problem is I chose to multiply the x's, but you absolutely could have picked to cancel the y's. And so the top one I multiplied by 3, bottom one by 2. And I didn't even have to worry about negatives because the bottom one was already negative. So I ended up with 6 and negative 6. But that is an issue. You just have to make sure that one's positive, one's negative. And, from then on, it's all kind of normal stuff. The beginning of these problems is where probably most of you had issues or difficulties. Anything up there that maybe you have a question on? Okay. Did I go too fast? Or are some of you still working on them? Is anybody, I don't know, anything? Blank screens. Okay. Do you guys want me to be done? So you better want more examples. Is anybody even at their computer? I have a feeling you are. Okay, I can certainly put more examples up, David. I don't have any in front of me. Do you have some? I can do some from the homework. Do you have any of the homework questions in front of you? Because it's hard for me to think of these ones. It's hard for me to think of equations that work off the top of my head. Because I can put equations up there, but they usually work out badly. Yep, you're welcome. But if you want to open up the homework, I could certainly try start them with you. Yep. Correct. Yep. I know your math teacher doesn't have a book or a calculator. It's pretty much heresy here. I'm not sure how. I'm ashamed. Because if you wanted to, you could type in the equations in the chat. I could just do them up there from there. Oh, you know what? Let me stop the recording because I don't need to put this on the recording.